Hello, everybody. I'm just doing a quick sound check that you can hear and that you can see the screen. Hoping that means everyone's audio is good. Someone could turn their camera on for 2 seconds and give me a thumbs up if the sound is okay. I would really appreciate it. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate you. Got a couple more people I just admitted. All right, I'm going to begin so we can get as much of this hour as possible. My name is Kelli Lane, and I am what's called a tech integration specialist in the North Shore suburbs of Chicago. Basically, my job is to not only help teachers build their capacity with the button pushing, talking about implementing integration in a real way so that the tech is actually enhancing the learning. It also has some STEM pieces. I do a lot of activities with kids. So I've taught pretty much everything from K-8. And so that's kind of the lens I'm coming from. I've also got a background in a master's I just got in neuroeducation, mind, brain, and education. So it's what's really happening in the brain as our kids are learning. And I'm super excited about our keynote tomorrow because she's the person who does retrieval practice, which I'm super into. Really appreciate that. I'm just going to tell you that it's very weird to present without an audience. I have a big theatrical background. I'm usually the one dancing around the presentation room in a weird costume. So doing this over video conference is a little bit different. But I am the Hermione Granger in any class. I always raise my hand. I always have the question. And if you're someone who I haven't said something clearly, or it's confusing, or it's stopping you from kind of being able to process and move on, just let me know. I am happy to have people raise their hand, unmute, pop in. It does not need to be a silent experience of me talking for the next 59 minutes. Okay, awesome. The next thing I like to do before I begin any session is I like to kind of re-go over what I'm planning on covering to make sure that it's the session that you thought you were attending. So as a tech integration person, as a coach, I kind of jumped on AI pretty quickly, and it was really easy to find lists about all the great tools that are out there. And then I would train my teachers on a tool, and then the tool would change, like the pricing would change, or the tool already went away, or it got bought by somebody. And I was like, you know what? My teachers, myself, I think most educators, if we want to know how to do something, we're going to figure out the button pushing. But what I wasn't finding was a lot of people in the beginning who were kind of talking about, well, now what? What kind of actual instruction should we be doing with this AI? Like, let's take it off teacher and put it on what it can be for the kids. And now I feel like there's a lot more of that out there. And I've been very fortunate that I've gotten to go to several different PDs, and I've read a lot of books, and I've run some book studies. And so I'm basically taking from all the best brains, the Matt Millers and the Holly Clarks and the Daniel Fitzpatricks and all those names that anybody who's doing AI right now you've heard about. And I'm just taking the best things I've stolen from them, I've tried in my school, and I know is working with kids. This session is not focused on ways to make your job easier in that these are like teacher shortcuts, lesson plans. These are things I would specifically do for kids, lessons with kids, things that you would do to hand to kids. So this is really coming at that student perspective. So I hope that is what you thought you were coming to. And I'm going to break the presenter rule. You really are supposed to present in full screen, but I need to jump around a lot. And so in order to be able to do that, I hope you'll forgive my tackiness that I am not in full screen mode. So in all presentations you ever go to, you always hear them talk about the why. And for me, the why of AI was because I feel like a lot of times we teach kids something and then we expect them to do it. And that's not what happens in real life. I would never be told that here are all the parts of this construction equipment. Now go do it. There's this middle ground. And I feel like AI really shines in that middle ground because it gives that guided practice without the teacher having to do yet another thing. My school, we do not have curriculums for math and reading. Our teachers create them. They spend more time trying to find 10 example sentences that meet the concept they're trying to teach. And now they won't have to do that because we're able to generate that with AI. So I'm going to do a little move in the faces. So forgive my mouse randomness for just a second, and we'll go ahead and get on to the good stuff. Okay. So one of the things that I think is really interesting is that Teachers are very concerned about AI and plagiarism and copying. And this is actually a quote that I used to use in my digital citizenship presentation, actually encouraging copying. It's from a fashion designer, and it says, start copying what you love. Copy, copy, copy. At the end of the copy, you will find yourself. And I liken this, ironically, it's a fashion designer, to when I learned to sew. There was initially some button pushing and some very low instructional stuff that I needed. But then no one turned around and asked me to immediately make a shirt. I was given patterns. I was given things to copy, styles, different techniques. And then I got to the place where I was able to do that. And I feel like that is what AI is a chance for kids. It's a chance to copy. I mean, we're social learners. That's what our brain's hardwired for from the time that we're infants. So this is sort of that social, without necessarily having to copy someone at your same level. You know, if you've got a room full of second graders, probably no one's giving really great exemplars, but now we have AI to sort of fill that gap. So that is one of my favorite quotes right now. And the reality is we can pretend students aren't using AI, but they are. I've got kids as young as first grade who are talking to me about things they're doing, whether it's Canva or whether it's on their dad's account, all the way up through my eighth graders. I coach volleyball, and it's literally that's how I've learned all the ways they cheat. So, this was really to kind of come up with activities that were not so much things that kids could just AI and get the answer. One other little thing I want to share is I think it's really important that we think about why we're doing projects. So I'll use writing as an example. I have a lot of students who have writing supports, and our teachers will teach a skill. Like, let's say it's like genre or kind of mood to a writing. And then the way they ask kids to demonstrate their learning is they ask them to then write a paragraph. Well, that doesn't necessarily show what they know. If they've got some kind of language barrier or they've got a learning struggle, we're now trying to assess the writing and not do they understand the concept and the standard. So with these AI lessons, I really want us to think about they may not be our traditional kids write sentences, but are they still assessing the thing you need it to assess? All right. The first thing I want to give you is this is one of those great copied stolen ideas. This is from Daniel Fitzpatrick. He's got an incredible book on AI. One of the things I like about his book is while he does have chapters where he uses specific tools, he does put a lot of framework. So as the tools change, these will still work. And one of the things that I think we all need to talk about in using AI is prompts. We really need to know how to prompt correctly. And what I describe prompting to my teachers is this. A lot of my teachers ask me to make posters for their classrooms. And there's the group of people who are like, here, Kelly, just do it. I don't care. It'll be pretty. You're going to do fine. Here's the content. Go away. I'll just use whatever you make. And I think of that as like Google. You just go and you look and you do and you move on. But when I'm prompting for AI, I need to be really specific. I needed to be that teacher who's like, I care that it is in this 1970s style with bubble letters and a brown color palette. So the more that we tell the AI, the better we're going to get. And this is Daniel's framework. He calls it PREP. So prompt, role, explicit, and parameters. Prompt is what you want it to do. So let's say I want it to write a biography about Edgar Allan Poe. The role would be, what role do you want it to take? You are playing Poe. The E would be explicit. Like, what does it have to include? It needs to include his birthplace, the story about his wives. It needs to include where he died. It needs to include what he was famous for, like his most famous writings. And then parameters is, what are the boundaries? I want it to be in 200 words. I want it to be written in his voice. I want it to be in a poem, whatever those are. So if you kind of use this prompt framework, especially for kids, especially for our littles, I think that you will find that you're starting to get some pretty solid results. So what I've done is I've basically gone through some categories that I've made, and I've grabbed some ideas and I've got some prompts, and I thought we could just sort of run our way through those. So for example, this is one I stole from Sarah Dillard. It's about think, share, pair, upgraded. So a lot of us have used that classroom learning where we give a prompt, we have kids sort of brain dump all that they can about it, then they pair with a classmate, and then they kind of come together in an agreement. Well, instead of going straight to the classmate, because again, a classmate is probably similar level, have them do this with AI. have them ask those questions, almost think it through with AI, and then go to their partner and create that combined from the best of them. And I've actually tried this in as little as third grade, and I'll get to how we do that with the age restrictions in a second. But I thought that it was going to come up with really fake or clearly AI leveled responses, and it didn't. The kids kind of only pulled stuff that they understood or that sounded like them anyway, but they started to get perspectives that they hadn't thought of. And so, in this lesson that I've done for 5 years in this classroom, we had an incredibly rich conversation because they're like, oh, they're not experts on things. And this sort of gave them some background expertise to think about and include. Another one would be ask AI for 10 prompts for students, then give them a choice what they'll write about. So that for me, that prompt looks like, I made a prompt sheet just to save us some time. So my prompt question would be, please provide 10 writing prompts for fourth grade students. Students are working on complex sentences and are very interested in Pokemon. And I'm going to choose Copilot for right now. And let me just give you a little back history. Again, you're at an AI conference. You may know this, so I apologize if this is redundant. So ChatGPT 3.5 is the free one. And I think it now goes up through like July 2022 for data, which means if you wanted to use ChatGPT right now for information about, let's say, what's going on in the Gaza Strip, it's not going to be up to date and accurate. If you want the one that's live and search, more search based, that's ChatGPT 4, and it's $20 a month, which is way more than I'm willing to spend out of pocket as an educator. Copilot, it was called Bing Search before, now it's called Copilot, is the one that Microsoft has put out, and it's free. And it is actually built on the ChatGPT 4 framework. So you get Dolly, which is the paid image program through ChatGPT through Copilot, and you get more live search capabilities. It's current if you use Copilot. So while I love ChatGPT, and I'll be honest, I think sometimes it gets better answers. I think it's been trained better. I tend to go to Copilot, especially if I want current information. I'm also a really big fan of a tool called Magic School AI. I feel like you're going to see a couple of these tools over and over if you're at this conference for more than a day, and people are going to explain and get into these. But if you're not familiar with this one, this was made by a former teacher who created templates. So you come in, you grab a template for the thing that you want to do, you plug in your information, and it's super, super structured. Like it helps you get to it, no problem. It tells you what you need. In fact, up here, if you're not familiar with this tool, it even has an exemplar. So if you're not sure what they're looking for, you can press that and it'll create an example for you. My one con about Magic School Tools is as of, I think it was January 24th, they started to charge for a lot of pieces of theirs, but they still have a GPT like chatbot called Raina, which is where I'm going to be plugging in a lot of what we do today. So going back to that Copilot, and again, right now we're focusing on that idea of just getting writing prompts. This is, again, a lot of times your reading ELA curriculum, your science of reading curriculum will say, hey, we need to have kids writing. And then they give you one prompt. This is what I would do. I would pop in, please provide 10 prompts for fourth grade students. Students are working on complex sentence writing, and they're very interested in Pokemon. So I'm going to press enter, and you're going to see that I get 10 prompts. Then I would put these up on the board. I would let kids, I'd say, pick a number and write down, respond to the prompt. And then you give your kids your parameters like, hey guys, we're working on complex sentences. So it must have a conjunction, or it must be 4 sentences, or whatever your classroom lessons are. Now, in these, most of what they're going to give you with this particular prompt are going to be typical writing activities, but there's a few thrown in here that are like write an acrostic poem. If I want more alternative writing type of activities, I just add that to the prompt. So let me come back to my popping around a lot here. This was my original prompt. Now I'm going to take the same thing and I'm going to say, add to it. The prompt should allow students to respond to writing, I should say, to writing in a paragraph, but also give other types of writing responses. So now I take this, and when I pop this in, I do get more of those like acrostic poems, or write out your own Pokemon card, or some of those different kind of writing activities. I don't feel like a lot of these activities are rocket science. I don't think they're things that teachers haven't been doing in their classroom. What I think these activities that, again, I've either gone from experience or I've stolen from other very smart people, is that they're one less thing that you have to think about, or you have to go to the internet to search, or you go visit Teachers Pay Teachers to find. Okay. So the next one in our list is tell AI I have this list of items and I want to explain a science concept. And then ask the AI to create the model. So my prompt for that is going to be, let me make this a little bigger so it's easier to see. I need to make a model of a cell. I have straw, paper clips, string, staplers, hole puncher, cardstock. How can I make this? So I would take this and I would drop this in with the kid. Again, I work with the K to 13 group, so I have an innovation station I'm going to talk about in a little bit. We'll drop it into ChatGPT this time, pop this in, and it's going to tell you the idea of something that you could make, and now you would have the kids build it. Now, I think it's really fun when I've done versions of this in my classroom before AI, where we had every kid bring something random from home. I remember one year I had like gummy bears and bouncy balls were all the rage back. It was, those squishy balls had made like a comeback. And so we did that and we tried to come up with a way to describe, we were doing solar system at the time, but this is that same kind of idea and it can kind of maybe help prompt ideas. I don't think we only rely on the AI, but if the AI gives us some things to think about, I think that's where it's really powerful. This next one I stole from Donnie Pierce, and he calls it play writing, PLAI writing. Love it. He has AI write the first scene of a 3-scene play and perform it immediately. I actually saw him do this on Good Morning America, and I was like, I know that guy. I've seen him. He used to speak in Chicago all the time. So then he takes that and he has kids take that play and then they edit what was written and then they finish the play. So I'm going to go in here. I see someone say, go Kentucky. I'm from Kansas City, so KU people. Think we have a little rivalry going on. So here's my prompt I'm going to use. Write the first scene of a 3-scene play. Include the characters. These were 3 students I had, Mohammed, Joey, and Mabel. And then we were very into video gaming that year, so I'm asking them to set the scene in a video game. And when I do this, again, I'm going to choose Copilot. I could use Raina from Magic School. I could use ChatGPT. It doesn't matter. This is going to create a script. And when Donnie's suggestion from this was that he reads all of the stage instruction, and then he doesn't give the kids a chance to practice this. He just goes straight into having them read it. And then once it's done, and the kids have read it, and usually in that scene 1, you're left a little bit on a cliffhanger. He then has kids go back, change what they didn't like, and then finish the script. And we're not really reading a lot of these. I'm going to just kind of skim these. I see someone commenting about the positivity about Donnie. Yes, he's amazing, and he just released a book not too long ago. And I have not read it, but I did order it. And I'm hoping, knowing Donnie from what I've heard of him before, seen of his stuff before, his probably will be less about tools and more about like ways to do lessons. So I would strongly recommend you check that out. So here's the result of our play, again, Stolen Idea. You've got your 3 characters. It describes them, so you could very quickly read that to the kids to sort of set the mood. I have a background in master's in theater, so this makes me very happy that they describe the characters, and the kids would read it. And they love anytime it's their name and anytime it's in their activity, what they're interested in. A couple years ago when Among Us was everywhere, I would have done everything in Among Us. I see a question asking about Spanish. Yes. So any of these tools, you literally just now say, now translate to Spanish. I will say that Copilot is set to Bing's translator. I know there's a lot of debate on whether Bing or Google Translate is better or Apple Translate. I would say that you are going to get the same problems that you get with any of these translation tools, that they probably are in the 80% accuracy. So I would absolutely say it's doable. I also think you have a great opportunity. In fact, this is a suggestion I have later. I think having kids correct things that have been translated, that's an incredibly powerful skill. It lets them practice editing in their native language. It makes sure they understand content. I have another question asking if we can set grade level. Yep, I could say this is a play for a 3rd grade group of kids. Or, in fact, did I have that in my prompt? I can't remember now. No, I did not. I should have. I should have an 8. So I'm going to add that right now. 3-scene play for 3rd grade. So I hope that answers those questions. I have my chat kind of off to the side, so I'll try to keep my eye on movement over there. To my AI, to my person who wanted to talk about Spanish 1 and 2, I actually do a whole session on ed tech and EL and ML students, you're welcome to my presentation. If you want to reach out to my email afterwards, I would happily send that to you. All right. That's anybody else who does EL, you're welcome to it. Let's see. The next one. I love this one. I love this one. I love this one. I think teaching about voice is so powerful because it doesn't matter how good a child's grammar is. It doesn't matter their accent. It doesn't matter all of these things that we're tested on. We're about to do our big state test in Illinois real quick here. And I think voice is magic. I mean, that's why we have all of these great novels that are coming out that are written in free verse and rap style. And we've got books with Southern accents, and we've got books that, different parts of the world where they have these great flavors, and it's awesome. So I think it's important to take things that are famous and put them in a different voice and really talk about what that means. So here's one, and here's my prompt again. We're going to rewrite the Gettysburg Address in the style of Edgar Allan Poe. Now, for this one, I am going to use ChatGPT, and I'll tell you the reason why is because when I've done this with Copilot and Raina in the past, I got yelled at for copyright, which it shouldn't be because that's in the public domain. So I'm going to go ahead and write this, and let's see what we get. While this is finishing, let me just give you one big thing. For all of the COPA, SOPA, HIPAA, all whatever the initials are for student privacy, please make sure that you're never, never, never putting in real names, real dates, specific cities, name of your school. Really teaching kids to do that and you doing that as adults is so important. I will tell you a kind of a hint that I do. When I'm using anything and I need to put in a name, I always use the word duck. I'm kind of known with kids for having a rubber duck collection. And so every time I need a name, I put duck. And every time I need a pronoun, I put quack. And then I go in and I copy the thing or whatever, and I use find and replace. And I look for all the words duck, and I tell it what name I want it to be. And I look for all the pronouns quack, because there's a very good chance that anything I'm doing for school isn't going to have duck and quack. If there's something you're passionate about, my husband, when I taught him this trick, he now uses penguin and waddle because that's what he's into. So that's just I'm a child of the 90s. I really like infomercials. That was your little free gift with purchase that had really nothing to do with my session, but I hope someone found that useful and hadn't thought of that before. Or you're all geniuses and you're thinking I need to step it up. All right, so here is our, in the style of, again, this is the Gettysburg Address. Once upon a bleak November morn, in a somber shadow embrace upon a field where valor's breath had ceased. Now, one of the things that I am a little bit hesitant on is sometimes the style is so literal that it's literally, the same timbre, the same meter, the same everything, and they've just replaced words. Like I have one I'm going to show you a little bit later where we're going to talk about comparing two different voices, and it writes so literally in that person's style. So if you don't like what you've got, remember, you can always turn around and prompt this again. Great. You followed that a little too structured. Can you do a lesser, maybe copy a little less, but keep the tone or the voice? Okay. I'm going to just pause there for a second. Any thoughts, comments, other questions that I haven't answered? Okay. I'll keep my eye for those. My presentation that you'll be getting is here, but you'll see I'm kind of going between my prompts. That's just to help me save time typing this stuff out. That's why there's two different documents. So that I kind of categorized as idea generation, and now I'm going to move on to 00. Again, free gift with purchase, infomercial child. So I work in a K-8 environment, and I am absolutely seeing what everyone else is seeing about, you can't use this with kids, right? You can't give this. This is not meant for under 13. So I want to just give you several ideas and ways to get around it. Number one, Canva for Education bought an AI company last year. And I think most people have seen that use Canva that there's a bunch of cool magic AI for like images, but I don't think people have all found that there is magic right in there. And it has got so many cool things. I could do an entire 6-day session on all the things Canva does. So if you have not and you're working with the littles, I would strongly recommend you go check out what's happening with AI and Canva. I can't remember if it's this conference that the Merrills are at. They do a lot of stuff with AI and the littles and Canva. They're Canva trainers, so that might be a name if you're looking for someone. If I cover anything and I haven't hit like a tool that you are like, so how would you do that? I'm one of those people who loves to talk about this stuff. So please feel free to email me. We'll jump on a Zoom. I'll give you my phone. You could text me, whatever. So Canva is one thing. Khan Academy I can never pronounce their one that starts with a KH, whatever their AI is. They are now putting one that's meant for the under 13 bunch so that you can search in there. At this point, if you're asking about Canva is free for teachers and students across the board. And you can get your whole school on it, which makes sharing a little bit easier. But if your school won't do it, every teacher, every student, and it's supposed to be free for life for teachers. So make sure you sign up with an EDU. And if yours, even though you sign in with your school email, if it switches you and doesn't acknowledge that you're an EDU, which is what happened to many of my teachers, we just send them an email, send them a thing that showed our website, and they fixed that. So good questions. Keep asking. So you've got Canva as an option. You've got Khan Academy as an option. School.ai, I believe, has one that's like it's got the parameters. They're calling them guardrails, so that it's not really searching out and it's not real AI and it doesn't collect any data. That's another way to do it with the littles. But the best thing I've heard of all the research I've done with Holly Clark, who I believe is at this conference, I was at her session a few months ago, and she said that she keeps a computer in her classroom that she has some cute name. Mine, I named Innovation Station, and it's signed into her. I think hers is on ChatGPT because she uses the bots. Mine, for safety, I went ahead and stuck with the Magic School AI and Copilot because there's no signing in. There's no, the data that's collected, I know, is a little bit less on those. It is in the classroom. And her recommendation, which is what I've been using, is kids that want to use that, you kind of introduce different ways they can use it. They can get permission to go up, but they are not allowed to copy and paste and send it to themselves. They either have to remember it and walk back to their seat, or they can bring like their scrap journal and they can write on it, like what they got from the AI into their journal and then work with it. And just in the act of rewriting, kids automatically edit themselves. No kid is going to copy that paragraph, especially if it's like they're asking, like, give me ideas for things I can write about video game scripts, right? They're not going to they're going to immediately inject their own stuff, even in the translating it from the screen to that journal. They're going to be like, oh man, they used a dragon. I'm not into dragons. I want mine to be a fill in the blank. So you've got kids self-editing without you having to do anything. So being in the tech department, we are fortunate to have a lot of some laptops that are loaners lying around. I got with my buddy teacher that does all of my piloting for me, and we plopped this in. I think I said second grade. Hers was second grade. My class was third grade that I'm doing this with. We went and we did several mini lessons in the morning for 5 days about all the different ways you could use it. We plopped it in. And the nice thing about all of these chat tools is they keep a history. I'm zoomed in so you can't see it, but there it is right there. And on ChatGPT, for Copilots over here. So you can see what kids are typing in and you have a history. And I mean, this is, what time kids go up there. Like you have to figure out the classroom management. We have amazing kids. I'm not super worried about it. But if anything did go wrong, we do have sort of that record. But no kid is signed in. No kid is putting personal information. And the kids are safely using that tool in the classroom. If you're at all nervous, you could certainly send out permission slips. I did not do that. I also am not hitting a wall with this with admin. I know some of you would. So please, use these with a grain of salt and be mindful of what will not get you in trouble in your world. Did that make sense? Yeah? Okay, we're going to move on. Let's talk about comparison analysis. So I don't know if people know this, but back when books were published, way back when scrolls, I should say, I can't remember if it was Plato or Aristotle or Socrates, one of those guys was so appalled about books. Children, adults, we can't have these things written down because then we will not use our memories and our memories will turn to mush. Whoever it was massively opposed to books. And that was the same thing we heard about Google, Wikipedia. It's what we heard about social media, and it's what we're hearing about AI. And I think the magic comes in when we all acknowledge kids, especially middle school kids and high school kids, are going to use that AI. But now let's make them show their work. Again, I mentioned I have a background in neuroeducation, and one of our keynote speakers is going to be talking about her specialty is retrieval practice. And what happens is whenever you have to think about something that you want to add into your brain tries to connect it to somebody's there. And just like when you do push-ups more and more and more, you get stronger. The more that you think about that thing that's already in your long-term memory, and the more you connect new things to that thing in your long-term memory, the stronger that those neural connections get. And that, back in the day, they didn't think we could rebuild neurons. And now in certain places of our brain, which is where learning happens, you absolutely can. So having kids retrieve information and compare, which is not even the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy, actually creates some of the greatest connections neurologically in the brain and enhances the learning. So the next set of section of things really focuses on that sort of principle. So here's one. All of our kids in math in middle school, I don't care, good kids, the Henri kids, all kids at some point are taking pictures of their math problem and using one of those tools, and it's going to have them give them the answer, right? And they've gotten so good now, I think most of us have seen that they will even walk you through how they solved it. Well, that's not usually the way my teachers solve. I'm very fortunate to be in a district with some incredible content specialists. My math teachers are unbelievable, but the way they teach things is not your usual, and it's not the, things that are hotly debated with Common Core. They are just incredible hands-on teachers. And so what they do is they have the kids take a picture and screenshot what the AI says, and then they have the kids solve it their way. And then they make the kids write a paragraph explaining the difference. What do they like about the AI way? What don't they like about the teacher way? And let me tell you, when middle school students get a chance to say something critical about their teachers, they're all in. Like, they can do it with respect, but they are all in. So for them to be like, I always joke, I always think of lattice multiplication when that disaster happened and then went away and then came back and then went away and now is shunned. So you have the AI showing you lattice multiplication, you have the kids showing, a better system, and then they're explaining all the reasons. If you have a third grader who can look at something, a sixth grader, a secondary language person, someone who has a learning disability, a learning struggle, if we're only looking at the right answer, who cares? I don't care what answer they get. But man, if they can be like articulate and at their appropriate grade level, talk to you about the thing and how they did the thing, I think that is magic. All right. This is the part where I get really passionate. I don't mean to sound soapboxy. I just love kids. I love education. And I really believe tech is the great equalizer. So let's talk about the next one. I love to have kids predict what the AI is going to do. So have it feed it something and guess what it's going to do. So one of the things I've had kids do is they write a paragraph. Again, whatever the standard is you're working on, I'll go back to using like voice and word choice and just making it, we call it juicy writing in my district. So like have them guess, like, okay, feed it in. And what do you think are the most important vocabulary words in what you wrote? And then you feed that in. And I'm going to do an example of that. And you ask the AI, well, what do you think are the most important vocabulary words? So let me see. I've done so many of these. I've jumped around. We'll use this one. This is stolen from Alice in Wonderland. Not stolen, it's common. It's not copyrighted anymore. So I'm going to grab this, and the question prompt I'm going to ask is for this text, please summarize it in 2 sentences and identify the important vocabulary. Now, because this is just part of the story, you may find that it doesn't do the best job because it probably doesn't have a good start and ending, but we'll see what we get. So this acknowledged where it's from, which is a great lesson in citing sources. It brought it down to Alice. Let's see what we got. Alice falls down the rabbit hole and contemplates her descent. Okay, that's way too hard. So what I should have put in that prompt, and again, I reprompt all the time because I forget, I'm doing it too fast, or I'm in front of a group of adults and I'm nervous and I forget something. So I would probably redo this again and say, hey, I need this vocabulary to be at a 5th grade level, or I need this to be at a 7th grade level, or whatever I need it to be. So here we go. We've got contemplates, and here's the important vocabulary: latitude, longitude, and ooh, look at that fanciness that she's misusing the word. So, and then you have kids talk about like, oh, do you agree? Do you think that's a good word? And, or you might have them go like, oh, no way, miss, every kid knows that word. So it's kind of fun. So it's that reflecting. It's, again, don't just do the thing with the AI, do the thing with the AI and then make kids justify it. And that could be, from classroom management perspective, that could be group discussions, that could be a chat board, that could be a think, pair, share. It could be flip, which I think is incredibly powerful. I think it is much faster to grade kids when you give them a 30-second time limit on flip. And everyone goes, 30 seconds. Oh, my teachers, 30 seconds. Okay, first of all, if you take 30 times, you've got 90 kids to grade for. That's plenty. But also, if you really know how to say something, most of us say it in under 22 seconds. That's the brain research. So giving them 30 seconds is enough time. If you give them a minute, you're going to get the ums and the so's, and with the littles, you're going to get them checking themselves out. And, so that's a great way to capture their thinking about what they've done with the AI in a quick way. I'm going to pause here for a second and just check in. I'm hoping this is what you thought you were for. If you're somebody who's gotten an idea that you hadn't thought of before, there's been something, at least one thing that's useful, if you would either turn on your camera and give me a thumbs up or give me a digital thumbs up. I think they've got those allowed. Hopefully that this is something you're getting something useful. That would be great. Okay. Never want to waste any educator's time. All right, so let's move on to a next one. So we did that predict that we talked about. Here's another one that I've done with kids. I've got someone asking for math. I do. And I actually have it's not my session. I just went to an incredible session about Canva, AI, and math. Email me and I will send you that person's presentation. It's for K5, but you could tweak it to any grade level. Okay. So I love to do this one as well. Our 8th grade social studies in Illinois is the big year where they have to do this big constitution test. And, they're looking at all the speeches from that time. And let's use something we all kind of know. I usually use the Gettysburg and ask it to be summarized or ask them to say the same speech in the same voice, but give them a word count limit and let them read that. And yep, is it shorter? But I like to can tell the kids it's like reading a letter versus reading a tweet. Like you get the gist in a tweet. And there are times when a tweet is fantastic and exactly what we need. But man, do you lose something? Like, do we think that President Lincoln would have had near the passionate response, if he had been like, yo, let's go. We got it. Let's move on. We're good. In that 140 character kind of way. So I think that's another great one. Once again, this is if your kids don't have access to AI, you do this part for them. And then their response part is how you get them to kind of categorize their reflection. I'm going to just show you that one because I think it's kind of fun. So I'm going to take a little less known speech, but I think most of us have heard of Churchill, but he had a speech known as We Shall Fight. And I'm going to pop this in and my prompt is shorten it. I a lot of times use shorten as opposed to setting a specific grade level. And I'll tell you why. I found that shorten can do a really great job of making things understandable without always dumbing it down. Then if what I get is still too hard, then I might ask. But a lot of times, like we had several families come over from Turkey last year and they had very little English. And I felt like everything we gave them that was at their reading level was really cutesy. And these are 8th grade boys and they had little bugs on it and it was really adorable. And or we would bring it down into such a low level that it was almost insulting to how intelligent they were. So what we started to do instead was adopt AI and ask it to shorten. And then we would go in and we would tweak that 1 or 2 words that were really probably too difficult for their vocabulary at that point. But typically when it shortens, it gets the most concise language, which is usually at a more readable level. So hopefully that is useful tip. So shorten or grade level. So now it brings it down to this quick speech. And you can see that Copilot pulls the important vocabulary for you. I can't remember if it's pulling that automatically or if it's pulling that because in this thread I asked earlier for that. I can't remember. I think it might always pull that. Also, if I haven't mentioned this, all of these services, there's a copy button. So you can always grab these, which means if you have it make a table, they copy and they paste beautifully. So here it is. It's brought down. Now maybe I want to put that prompt in a second time. And this time is where I was talking about, like, let's force it down to a certain number of words, or let's ask it to have a different voice, and then really have kids sort of analyze what the effect is. Oh my gosh, this is so fun. And I have an art version of this later, and I hope I get to it because I just realized that I am so shallow in, and I've got so much more to cover. Now you all have to going to be my friends, call me, reach out, and we'll talk about AI sometime. Find the Bot is awesome. So what you do is you ask to write about something really easy for kids to write about. Like sock and rubber ducks are always my examples. So it has all your students write a paragraph secretly, or, and obviously make it age appropriate. If you're second graders, maybe it's a 2 sentences. If you're seventh graders, something else, and ask them to include whatever skill you're trying to assess. They all write it. They turn it into you. You copy and pasted a few of them onto a doc, and then you do the same thing with ChatGPT or Raina or whatever tool. And then you show them all and you ask kids which one is the bot, and let them debate and talk and discuss and what they're looking for. First of all, the digital citizenship that you're teaching them in order to be able to understand what might be different about a bot. I realize that ChatGPT has gotten a lot more natural language, but there are certain structural things that I can usually tell when my superintendent has used ChatGPT to frame a memo. So this is a really cool thing. And I'm going to jump ahead because it's too fun not to show you. And I'm going to, again, be tacky. I'm sorry. I'm going to show you my side stuff. I'm going to show you the visual one of this in case we don't get to it, because we probably won't. This is so fun. Okay, so this one is called Odd One Out. It's from the Google Arts and Culture. And find the AI generated image. Now, if we were live, I would make you all shout out which one you think is the AI. And it counts down. Here we go. All right, if you want to throw it in chat, which one do you think is the AI, friends? First. Oh, we're running low on time. Oh, okay, first one, someone said 4. Oh, you nailed it. No one ever nails it on the first time. Lada, you're a rock star. So now it doesn't leave the page until you ask it to. So it pauses here. What a great chance to have a conversation. Well, okay, so if that one was AI, what's different about it? What do you see? And you're going to start teaching kids to be, these are going to be kids who live in this world where they have to discriminate between what's authentic and what's created by machine, or what's fake news, or what's a altered image. And this is a great way to sort of at a low level start teaching to do that. So this is a great fun. I love this one. Man, I have so much to share and I'm taking too long. All right, I'm gonna go through and pick some other favorites. Let me draw attention to this. ISTE, which if you're not in the ed tech world, that is kind of our governing body for standards. ISTE is our Common Core for math and reading. They are high level, and they have created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different guides that are very concrete hands-on AI projects. Now, they may use a tool that no longer exists, but for every tool they reference, there's another tool that's come out. So you can find the tool, but this will help get you some of those lesson ideas. None of my stuff is coming from there. So this is a whole nother set of resources. Okay. Let me grab some of my other favorite ones. I love this one. Practice speaking a foreign language with AI. What you do is you have kids go on and you set the parameters of, again, I actually have now a station of innovation stations, laptops in the spaces that I'm in, but you basically would have kids practice the AI. If they can't do this at school, most parents are letting kids do things like this on their phone. So talk to them about like tools, and there are now safer tools that are not the same, like it's not requiring ChatGPT. There are definitely some that are more in the education world. Again, I think Khan Academy has one. So that's a great one to have them practice. But another thing, and I hinted to it earlier, that I like to have students do is have a student who is bilingual translate something, or you give the kids, like you have them write a paragraph, you translate it. So you give your English speakers a paragraph in Arabic, and you have them Google Translate it, which is something kids do. And then you have kids really go, oh man, that translation is awful when it goes from Arabic to English. Imagine it must be that same way from English when we translate to Arabic. First of all, you're having such a beautiful SEL opportunity to talk about what it's like in the rest of the world, what it's like to not be the main language spoken. You're teaching them that the tools aren't always accurate. You're teaching them that you have to take it with a grain of salt. You're teaching them to find the mistakes and then correct them, so they're practicing without it being a worksheet. So that's another one that I think is great. I'm going to pop to this one because this is so awesome to do, but this one I was alluded to earlier, that sometimes they get a little too literal with their frame. Ask 2 people to talk about the same subject. Again, I'm using socks. So write a paragraph about socks in the voice of Martin Luther King. Write a paragraph about socks in the voice of Poe, or Maya Angelou, or Walt Whitman, or Shakespeare. And when you do that, you're going to get 2 paragraphs about the same thing. And you really have this great opportunity for kids to talk about what makes voice, what makes genre, what makes good sentence structure. And in the past, what we would have done, at least in my district, is we would have always been like, hey, kids, we just talked about these things. Now I need you to write a sentence that's an example of a dark voice. Again, our kids that struggle with those learning disabilities, or our kids who, heck, are just struggling with coming up with an idea like that, or they're just so tenuously new at the concept. Like they can find it, but maybe they're not quite to the mastery level where they have to write it. That's a great one that kids like. Because of time, I'm not taking these and posting these prompts that I created. So I apologize, and I hope that doesn't make this feel a little, maybe it may feel a little too rushed. So if it feels like now I'm going too fast, feel free to chat me. I will happily fix that. If you aren't using this, please make sure that if you use nothing else AI, that you're taking stuff and you're bringing things down to a to a level of competence for students. I mentioned I just did this master's program and I was getting all these neurology papers that were intended for neuroscientists, and I am not. And so what I did is I would take the abstract from the research paper and I would be like, please write this at a 10th grade level. And then I would read the abstract that way. And then when I went to read the paper, which now you can add a lot more pages, PDF into these chat bots, but then I would read the paper abstract, after I read the abstract that had been brought down to my level, I was then able to understand more of what I read in the research paper. If I were in the research now, I would be able to take a PDF version of most research articles and ask the whole article to be bringing down. Someone just asked if I share my slide deck. Yes, they collected all of our resources. And then I had it at the beginning and I have again at the end. I will make sure you get that. Okay. Let's see what else we got. This is awesome. This is another free gift with purchase. This is a group that got on AI very early on, and they basically started crowdsourcing from people all over the world to send their best ideas. And I'm just going to kind of pop to a few of these. Here we go. So they like one of the categories is critical and moral reasoning. This is the teacher's idea. This is the inspiration. You can't see this very well, but when you download it, it's a beautifully created book. So this is a great resource to kind of help look for ideas and start to get, especially if you're high school, these are some higher level kinds of activities. All right. Thank you to the person who likes the activities. Yay. Okay. How many of you remember being in middle school or high school and you're supposed to like pick your topic to do your speech or your debate or your research paper, and all of a sudden your mind went completely blank? Let's just ask AI. I'm a adult learner who's very interested in crafting and collects rubber ducks. I need to write a research paper about blah. Bam, get a list of prompts. No more freaked out blank stare. And then kids are going to look at that and they're going to be like, I don't want to quite do that one, or kind of like that one. And they're going to naturally edit and pick the topic that they want to do. I want to bring this attention. When I have kids do things with AI on purpose, when I'm asking them to do it, I also ask them to document what prompts they did. So if I was asking them to get AI to write them an exemplar paragraph on a concept, let's say, for example, I keep using writing examples. It could be used for math as well. I asked them, what was their first prompt? What was the result that you didn't like? What was your next prompt? What was the result you didn't like? And let them keep that sort of track of their prompts. First of all, it's going to make them better prompt writers, which is a life skill that I think all of us, myself included, would really benefit from, because prompting correctly is what makes AI work. But it also holds them accountable. So like, yep, sure, you're going to use AI. We're acknowledging that, but now you're making them justify, like, why did they make those changes? Well, show me your evidence. All right, let's see. If you have not played with Hello History, I've been really careful not to put specific apps on here because I did this presentation and then I went to give it again, and almost everything I suggested had either changed or now was sold or cost or whatever. This is one that I did check is still available. Hello History looks like an iPhone or a chat bot, and you pick a person, Albert Einstein, and you have a conversation with them. And when we did this, I really thought kids were going to ask, I don't know, I kind of thought they were going to be really shallow questions. And when we did one for social studies, and I can't remember who it was, I'm gonna just say it's Napoleon. But when a teacher told me they did this, the kids were asking things about like, were you scared? What was that like for you? And they were bringing in this human element. And anytime you can inject emotion, we learn a little deeper, we remember it a little longer. So this would be a really great way to like have kids have conversations and maybe give them some parameters like, you're going to ask them historical questions, but then I want you to ask them personal questions, and of course define what that means. We don't want to know about the dating lives, but it's really, you could kind of have an opportunity to have some SEL moments there. This is super fun. We're about to do our state testing, and this is something we're doing. I call it level up writing. I have had students who were brave, who were willing to put in their writing, but generally what I would do is I would have AI create a paragraph for you. Then I would take that paragraph and I would drop it in the AI, and I would ask it to choose to identify a reading level or what level of writing it is. So let's say that I have a paragraph that I'd ask AI to give me a third grade level. We put it in, and AI actually says, well, it's really probably more of a second grade level. Now I look at my kids and I'm like, all right, level up, level up. We say that in my class a lot, level up. And then I asked them, what are we going to do to get this, that we put this back in? It's going to say we are middle schoolers. How are we going to get this to a sixth grade level? And they start throwing in adjectives, and they start giving me compound sentences, and they start making the writing more juicy. And then we put it back in. And when they see that their second grade paragraph is now fifth grader, and they're like, let's say third grade kids, they're like, yeah, I'm ready for middle school. I'm out of here, and their ego and their confidence. And then those quiet voices in your class, they're not as intimidated by this. This isn't straight out writing. This isn't a blank sheet of paper staring them in the face. And so you've got these kids who are like throwing out ideas and they're excited. And then you throw their names in the paragraph. Please, anytime you can put your kids' names or your kids' interests, they are automatically more engaged. And they're like, yeah, I'm in that paragraph and I leveled up to ninth grade. They lose their minds. So I hope that's one that I have a few of these on here that are like quick wins that I think everyone should try. That's one of my quick wins I think everyone should try. I love this when you're teaching research and you're teaching about citations and not just copy and pasting from Wikipedia. This one is find evidence to support what AI claims. So let's not ask kids to do the research immediately. Let's give them a research topic, and let's just say it's cloning. That's what I read about this morning. So let's say it's cloning, and you ask AI about cloning, and then they're going to give you a bunch of things. Now, I would do this whole class because I don't want kids to then be able to use the AI and ask for citations. But now what you do is you ask them to find citations. Now, I don't know if any of you grew up in a church. I grew up in a very, very Southern church life, and we did this with the Bible. It was called sword drills. Anybody know what those are? And you basically would have to find the source to go with what they were saying. And that's what this reminds me of, is my childhood trauma. Okay, so we would do the same thing. So they said cloning is happening. And let's say that, because again, remember, ChatGPT doesn't go to the most current research. So let's say they're still mentioning things like Dolly. And we've since learned that there are 5 new things about cloning that have happened in 2024 already. Then kids are like, oop. And they go and they find things and they basically argue with the AI. And so you're teaching them debating skills and justifying and citation and using supports, but they're first of all not offending each other. There's nothing worse than having to like assess one of your peers. Like, come on, even as adults, that is so stressful when you're like, you don't want to bring in emotions, but they're fighting with this paper, with this AI, and they want to be right. And so I think that can be a really powerful one, and it works even down to the littles. This is actually the first step. I did a version of this before AI to teach kids how to write research papers. Here's your other free gift with purchase. This is an AI educator repository. This again is that Dan Fitzpatrick guy I mentioned earlier. His book is worth getting. He has basically been keeping a repository of tools. You can put in a category like feedback, and it will give you a tool. I'm going to say that he's trying to keep up with it, but this is all evolving so fast. But if you're just very quickly looking for like, man, I'm stuck, I just need an idea, it's late at night, I need to get this thing done, this might be a good starting place to give you some tool ideas. Aren't you guys glad I watched infomercials, but I have to give you these free gifts with purchase? A couple of other things. Digital literacy is so important to me as someone who is in the ed tech world. And I think there's so many opportunities with AI to really teach all kinds of digital citizenship stuff. For example, deep fakes. I mean, I don't care if it's a picture of the moon. That picture has in some way been photoshopped, edited, changed, AI'd. Something has happened to it. So starting to teach kids about how easy it is to make changes. And when, those are those great SEL lessons about for girls and boys who think that these fake ideals of bodies, kids maybe don't realize how easy that is. But even the moon, even pictures from the, what do we just have with the moon landing? Those pictures have been absolutely touched up. I saw some that look like they went through an Instagram filter. Another one is let kids look at the AI tools for you. This is older kids, but I've done this I had a teacher who was like, I want to use AI. I'm so frustrated. I'm so stressed. So I gave her a safe list of about 10 AI tools. And then I had her class go in and research them. And they made a pros and cons list. And I put there were maybe 3 that were of the same type. And I put 3 or 4 kids in a group with those 3 tools. And then they compared what I was just doing. They would do a comparison of Copilot, maybe Raina and ChatGPT. Those aren't the 3 we used, but that can give you an idea. So if you're someone I'm all about child labor, anytime the kids can do the work, plus in real life, isn't that what they're going to have to do? They're going to have to decide if that's the best tool, why it's the best tool. So this is a great way to get them thinking. Another one, great opportunities for pro and con. We have a big copyright lesson we do here before AI that we've done for years, and it's when is it genre and when is it copyright? And now you can take that to a whole new level. What's copyright? When you ask it to do something, and I don't know how many have heard the Frank Sinatra singing all of those great hip hop songs. Is that really ethically okay? So there's a great opportunity to really kind of have those conversations. I feel like I got nervous about the time and I'm kind of rambling. So let me pull myself back together. Here's a really important one I think that is necessary. The more you ask AI to generate, the more it becomes a little bit self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, I'm going to use the word almost incestuous. It starts to use itself as its point of reference, and it becomes almost like a game of telephone. So it's really interesting to have kids keep now tell me again, do it a different way, tell me again, and start to see what happens. There's a lot of great conversation that can come in here. And then I think it's super important to talk about identify bias in AI. If you ask it to describe a picture of a doctor, it's almost always a white dude. If you ask it to describe a teacher, it's often a white woman who's older and maybe a little plus size. If you ask it to describe a criminal, it does other stereotypes. And it's just a really powerful conversation that that's a lesson you could have with 4th graders. That's content and material. Now, will their responses be as deep? No, they're 4th graders, but man, what a great time that the earlier we can introduce them to these ways of thinking. I'm going to just do a quick shout out to Matt Miller. Matt Miller wrote a book called AI for Educators. I love Matt Miller. I love all of his stuff. I'm going to do a quick pause and just mention, though, there's a big chunk of his book that is already outdated because that's the nature of AI. But he does have a chapter or 2 that he does on lesson ideas. I actually think you can get a lot of that from on his site and his resources. So if you're looking for somebody to follow, if you're on social media, I would certainly consider Matt Miller because what he's doing now is incredible live. I want to do a couple of other really fun ones really quick because we only have a minute. This is one of my favorite ones to do, and it's called Twin Picks. And unfortunately, I'm going to say that this one caps out. So this one's at maximum players reached, and it's only got 3 minutes, so I can play, but I can show you about it. This is a great way to teach prompt writing. This game, they give you this picture, and then they ask you to write the prompt that would have resulted in this picture. And then later down, you can see the leaderboard. This one that's 88% accurate is not that off. I mean, that's pretty good. So now you've got kids who we're teaching them to be really good descriptive writers, and they're getting immediately feedback. If they're getting something like this looks nothing like the picture. This should not be a score of 78. So now they realize that maybe they need to put in a style of picture. It needs to be, not a animated. Maybe it needs to be more of a, I don't know what we would call that, realistic-ish fantasy. I don't know. So this is a really fun game. I will say the problem is that it does bleed out. So I have done this in classrooms where we just do it in the morning and I just pick a random thing that I generated. You could do a game called name, what would the name of this picture be? And just pull an AI yourself if this game isn't available. But this is really fun. I want to hit a couple of other quick things. If you're not familiar with Canva, there is so much in there that we can do with creating images. Canva actually has an extension to Dolly, which is Dolly is ChatGPT's image generator. Again, it's that $20 one, and it has it in there, so you can start doing these prompts, and then you can kind of practice it in there. So having kids write and then be like, ah, yes, wow, that is not what I thought that was going to be. Unfortunately, I am at time. I am going to go back up here and grab my link and post it in the chat. I believe that there are two things the conference is asking you to do. Ooh, why is that not loading? That's really weird. That's not loading. You can see it in my little picture there. They asked for you to, one, fill out a, if you can't see my QR code, you can't do my survey. You know what? I'm just going to do my downloaded version of that because I'm not sure what's happening there. There it is. So they're asking for feedback. I've never spoken or worked with this organization before. So if I told anything that was helpful, useful, if there's any feedback you want to give me, heck, if you want to email and give me feedback, I will happily take it. I have no ego. I want to be helpful for teachers. And then I believe there's also a link that they've been giving out that's a Padlet, and that is showing up. I'll also toss that in, where they're asking for people to put like a wow, an aha, something they took away. Say, I was in Kelly's session and this is the thing I'm going to use tomorrow. Or you might be like, hey, I was sitting in Holly Clark's session and I got 45 neat things to do because she's a rock star. So it was lovely to meet you all. I hope you have a good rest of your conference, and please feel free to reach out to me. I will stay in here for just a second with my contact information.